insurance, and indeed health and hygiene as well, environmental. So both of those have been checked, and both of those are 5-star references. So we have no worry on that score.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, that takes us then on to audit and staffing group.
No, we haven't met.
Building working group.
We haven't met.
And the shop working group.
We haven't met.
Last month. Okay. So, update from me in terms of Somerset Council. As you're well aware, the financial position is not great at Somerset. Things have improved a bit since I reported last time, at which point there was a £27 million shortfall. This year it's now a £19 million shortfall. The bulk of that saving is actually a £7 million refund, which has come into the council from, you may remember I briefed you on Connecting Devon and Somerset, which was the organisation that was getting broadband into the rural areas. They were paid a lot of money from government and from the county to do that work. What's actually happened is, because more people have signed up to the broadband with them than they budgeted for, there was a clause within the contract that said if you get extra revenue, a proportion of that's got to come back to the county, and £7 million is what's come back. So it's great, but it's a one-off. It won't affect us for next year.
It's not a running cost.
No. So for next year's budget, we're looking now at an £87 million shortfall. So things are not looking great.
So you're looking for 87 fibre companies?
Yeah. But as things stand, the county wrote out to all the parishes basically saying we are heading into a financial crisis. If we don't set a balanced budget, then our finance officer basically will issue what's called a 114 notice, which, as mentioned before, puts us into sort of special measures. So the council will be doing everything it can to avoid that. This year they have the ability to use reserves to fill the gap. For next year there wouldn't be enough reserves to fill that gap. So what they're doing at the moment is there are a number of discussions underway. There is a lot of savings being proposed which will come out probably January before the budget is set in February. That will include service reductions. They are all also looking at asset disposals. There are two main types of assets that the council owns. We have about £250 million worth of commercial assets which were bought by the district councils over the last few years to generate revenue. A bulk of those were bought with borrowed money. So the plan was, in effect, the revenue paid the interest and then made the surplus. They are not making as much surplus as they were, but most of them are still washing their face in terms of them being an asset. But what the government has said is they will give no further help if a council has commercial assets. The first thing you've got to do is look at your own assets, and if you need to sell them, you sell them. So the council has resolved that they're going to sell all of the commercial assets over a period of time. As things stand at the moment, the likelihood is that will result probably in something around about £50 million capital loss, because the assets are not, they were never bought as short-term assets, they were bought as long-term investments. So there is an issue on that front, and the second issue is when you sell the asset, you lose the income that it's currently bringing in, which leaves a further £20 million hole in the revenue budget. So that will go so far. On top of that, they're looking at selling actual bricks and mortar assets that the council's owned. So there is a rationalisation now being looked into of the office space that the 5 councils had, how those can be disposed of, where they will, as yet there is no decision as to where we will focus on, but whereas it was originally planned that there would be major elements of the council throughout the county, it is likely that will be focused back in on probably Bridgewater and Taunton. But there are a number of assets that are up for disposal on that front in the next year. What the government is also being approached for is they can give what's called a capitalisation permission. So normally councils can only spend capital on capital assets. They cannot use capital to spend on revenue. What the government is offering is the ability for us to apply to say for this year we will use capital to fill the revenue hole. Now that gets you through 1 year, and then next year you've got less capital that you can try and use to fill the hole. So it leaves you as a long term, it doesn't solve the problem, it just
Gets you through the first
it gets you through the first year.
Did the council get, Paul, did the council get any convergence programme in here its cost right at the beginning, redundancies, exceptional costings?
So in terms of the
How have they dealt with that?
yeah, so in terms of the merger of the councils and the redundancies that were supposed to come through, there was going to be originally £18 million worth of savings, about half of which was going to be redundancies. Currently, out of the 330 posts that were due to be made redundant, 30 have been made redundant. The vast bulk have not. So there's about £7 or £8 million worth of savings which are not resolved in that instance yet. We are still in a position where most of the staff have not been fully appointed since they transferred, so they haven't been allocated their proper jobs and positions. The staff have been advised by the Chief Exec that there will be further redundancies. I think we've been given no figures, but I would be surprised if it didn't run into 4 figures. There will be a substantial number of redundancies coming forward, and that's going to be across the whole of the council. One of the things that, if you go for this 114 and you get the commissions in, they basically just stop all your non-statutory spending. So what the executive have said is it's better that we make that decision than the government, because if the government do it, they'll charge you for doing it as well. So they are going to be having to making some really difficult decisions, and that's where this letter came to the parishes from the leader of the council saying there are going to be services that we currently do that we will either not do at all, or that we will do to a much lower standard, and you, the parishes, may have to help us make up the gap. So it could be, let's take gully clearance. They may be doing it twice a year. They'll go to the statutory minimum once a year, and if we want our gullies cleaned out more frequently, we would have to make a contribution for them to do it, or engage a company to do it and pay for it ourselves. We already do an element of verge maintenance, which falls under technically their responsibility, but we've taken it on ourselves. Some parishes like East Brent, their village green is owned and maintained by Somerset Council because it was by Sedgemoor previously. They're likely to be advised, well actually there are other parishes like Brent Knoll who own and maintain their own. You may have that as your East Brent might find they're picking up the cost of doing that. So it's those sort of things that are going to be devolved. In the towns, things like CCTV, it will be, again, it's not a statutory function for the council to provide it. Police don't do it, so we do it and others benefit from it. They've already started charging the towns a few years ago an element of it, but it's likely they're going to have to pay more of that, and it's that sort of thing that we're going to find more and more coming down the track to us.
So do we need to take that into consideration when we consider the precept?
Exactly, and that's one of the things you will have to look at today when you're doing the precept. And the difficulty is, and we had a scrutiny meeting yesterday and it was raised, is that how do the parishes make provision when they don't know what services are coming down and what the cost of those are going to be? For the big towns, Bridgewater, as Owen mentioned, they're looking at potentially taking sections of the department from the council, so they'll transfer over the staff, and they will in effect have a mini clean surroundings department run and owned by Bridgewater Town Council for doing their own stuff, and they might offer those services at a price to their surrounding parishes. Burnham are having a discussion about it as well. The bigger towns have the ability, because they've got the size. What's likely to happen with us as the parishes, it will be that you can buy into those services, but as we raised at the meeting yesterday, if you've hollowed the service out by giving bits to various towns, how much critical mass do they have left in Somerset to do the service anyway? So at the moment, everything is up in the air, and unfortunately parishes have got to set their budgets, and the Somerset still has a problem in that the government don't give them their final settlement as to what they're going to have for their budget for next year until the end of December.
Yeah.
So then they could only start really knowing what's happening then.
I remember from the last time we were guessing, Do we have the facility to go back a second time, or can we only do the precept once?
Yeah. So what's tending to happen at the moment is a number of parishes are putting in a sum that will be within their budget. So I think East Brent have called it something very much like our special projects, where you've got a sum of money that will be either available to do something in the parish, or it will be available to do something with Somerset Council if we need to. As I say, it's difficult for us to work out what we're going to do, because a lot of stuff we are already doing. Things like we took on the toilet block years ago. We've been doing the verges for a long time. We pay for our toilet, for the dog bins. All those sort of things we're currently doing, which a number of parishes don't. So we're probably better placed than some, but we just don't know as yet what we're going to get hit with, which is difficult when it comes to us.
Worth pointing out also, Bob, that one of the concerns was how safe was our precept, in terms of if it's allocated to us, you know, it's actually in there until it's transferred to us technically, but we were assured that our precept is fully protected. So there's no question mark over our.
That's a council decision, or is that a legal decision?
That's a legal.
That's a legal decision.
protected.
Because in fact
council
they
decision,
just post box the money. Then they're not allowed to have access to it.
Okay.
And again, when you look at the Somerset Council's reserves, it looks like they've got about 250 million quid's worth of reserves. But of those, about 150 million are actually held for other people. So things like the Somerset Rivers Authority have their finance through what was the county council. And there's a number of other ones where money is held as reserves, but it's not actually the council's reserves, it's somebody else's, so they can't touch that either. So it's going to be a challenging few months, I think, for everybody. The other thing they've done recently, just to save a few £100,000, is the main block A of the council building in Taunton is now being mothballed throughout the winter. Meetings that would have been held in there are being moved to the Taunton Dean premises. They've done the same thing to one of the Mendip buildings that's been sort of shut down, and they're sort of just pulling everything in at the moment to get through the winter, set this budget and see if we get through this year, and then look to, as I say, to sell off or redevelop certain of those buildings. I mean, Bridgewater House may well end up going what we used to do, the Sedgemoor building, but we just don't know at the moment, because some of them have got ongoing leases as well. So we've currently got homes in Sedgemoor in Bridgewater House, they rent a floor. Over at the Yeovil offices, they've got the police and somebody else are renting parts of the building, so you've got to then sort out those ongoing leases as to how you square those off before you can then rationalise the building. But it's, as I say, it's going to be pretty hairy, I think, for the next few months, and it's going to be difficult for the next few years, to be honest. Whatever comes out of this is not going to look like Somerset Council used to look like.
Just so that we can apply our thoughts to the precept before we get there, it seems to me that we cover a lot of the things that we may get, but I can see that one of our problems may well be getting these ditches cleared, getting the drains cleared. Those are our priorities going forward. So perhaps when we come to the precept, we can see whether we put 5,000 in for special projects, or maybe more, so that at least we've got a buffer. I know it's going to filter through onto the tax, but I think it shows that we've considered it and we've got a buffer, even if we just keep it in reserves and we don't use it this year, at least we'll build something up.
There's a range of different parishes are treating it in different ways. Some are doing nothing, they're just doing their normal budget. I know East Brent the other night had set, like us, they'd done the preliminary meeting, they then came back to it, and they upped theirs from a 4 or 5% increase to a 20% increase, but their budget is significantly less than ours. They're about half of our precept because they don't do as much as we do. there are some parishes that have gone 40 or 50%, but then again, you're talking about some parishes that have got incredibly small budgets, and 40% on a small budget is still not a huge amount. So there's a lot out there that's re-looking at this stuff. But we'll obviously come to that bit in the finance. Just a couple other things from county. You may have heard and thought, what on earth are they up to? The Willow Man is being re-looked at, and it was announced on the TV that there was a £35,000 that's being put forward by Highways to re-look at the Willow Man. It was just to reiterate, it's Highways Agency who are the motorway people, not Highways Department of the county, so it's not the county putting up 30, because I had my ear bent by a few people saying, you're in a financial hole, why are you spending £35,000 on the Willow Man? So that's not the council. One thing again, which we used to talk about areas of outstanding natural beauty. The government has decided they wanted to change the name, so they're no longer areas of outstanding natural beauty, they're now national landscapes. I don't think anything has actually changed about what they do, but they just wanted to change.
Yeah, so in other words, building land.
So they've changed the name. And other than that, just a thing which we've been asked just to flag up to people is to remember, with Christmas coming, a lot of people buy stuff over the internet. They tend to find that there's almost a 50% increase in the amount of cardboard during December, which causes no end of trouble for the recycling guys, because it fills up the cardboard bit of the lorry much faster than everything else, and they just have to keep going back and emptying. So anything that people can do to minimise cardboard, they're just saying, please try and do what you can to spread it out, or don't suddenly get blitzes of loads of
It's fair,
cardboard.
because I think last Christmas they didn't turn up, did they, for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So
Set fire to it.
Compost it, that's what you're supposed to do.
You can, yeah. Okay. Any questions anyone else has got on the Somerset stuff?
So yeah, just one. So Unitary's working then, is it?
Well, to be fair, the Unitary hasn't made things worse. What's happened? As you know, I was not a great fan of Unitary, so I'm not going to sing its praises. But what would have happened at this stage is the districts would have been sitting there relatively comfortably, still doing their stuff. Somerset County Council would have been in exactly the same position as this we are now, in the pressures that they're under.
They'd been worse off, surely, because they wouldn't have had the money from the district council.
Well, in effect, the reserves from the districts are helping to pay for this year's shortfall. I mean, they had 10 million of reserves come over from Sedgemoor alone. I mean, because what Sedgemoor have always done is they've maintained large reserves and then use those to smooth over spending time. So if there was times when it would have meant a big increase in council tax, we use that to keep it down and then keep it balanced. But it's all going into the hole that is adult and children's social care at the moment. The figures we were given today was of the 18-19 million shortfall we've got this year. The whole of the council, excluding adults and children's, this year has got a surplus of 8 million quid with the savings that they're making and the cutbacks that they're doing, and there's a £27 million overspend in those two other departments. And they're now 70 to 75% of the total budget, so they are the ones that are, unless something happens in those two sections, the rest of the council could just disappear, and it still isn't going to solve the problem. So, okay. Financial report from the parish is a little bit less concerning than the county one, but
yeah, the payments list really is the statutory payments. And as you know, that includes staffing, that includes Jason Mayer's contract, and the things that we pay every month for. Just one thing to say there, so just so you're aware, NALC, National Association of Councils, has agreed a national increase 3.85% on all staffing positions, which we would normally just go forward with. There's no option on that because it's part of contracts. So just so you know, that's been agreed nationally. Something called a Green Book, which deals with all this stuff. the others are, there's no changes at all in the other items of statutory. On the variable payments, we've got SLCC subscription 23/24, £183. Parish room hire, £156. And we've checked all those, they are all correct. Training chapter 8, this was for David and Amanda, who went on a very, very important, I think, chapter 8 training together down at Rushton. Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Amanda and David agreed they'll subsidise us by half. So it's effectively 289.80, but we're actually making a payment of 579.60. November wreath, a little bit late on that actually. We normally do that on November one. £20. That goes to the British Legion. Scribe accounting software, which we had to pay for an annual renewal on that, of £414.72. And Somerset Council toilet cleaning and dumping contract for the second half year, £1,536, and that's the same as it's been now for about 3 years. We've not changed that. There are two also additional invoices. You may recall I sent an email out to you regarding Nichols and also Mark Phillips. They're not on the agenda, so we're not obliged to pay them. On the other hand, we are being encouraged as parish councils not to keep small traders waiting unnecessarily during financial difficulties and financial constraints. So it is within your power to decide to make those two payments, or you could defer to the 20th of December when we need to have a second monthly meeting for the tendering decisions. So it's a matter for you really. If you're happy to make them now, that's fine. But if you feel that because it's not on the agenda, then that could be deferred until the 20th of December. So it's over to you.
Any views?
I think we should pay them.
I raise it, I reckon we should pay it.
Okay.
Is that a unanimous?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask why David and Amanda are paying half of the, is this a gesture from them or?
Yes.
You happy?
Because it is very expensive, but two people needed to kind of,
Yeah,
well,
they told us
like
when they got there, oh, it's good you've got two people, because you're supposed to have two working on the highway.
you have to have
Yeah.
two and a bit. Well, Owen put
I think a
the
big
email
thank you to
out.
David and Amanda.
Yeah.
Well, Owen put the email out saying this training is available, and I think we were the only two that
I
responded.
never had an
So
email about that.
it was when all the
It was a
training,
while
it was
ago.
the email
Was-
with the
was-
original, all the training,
Oh, was it?
all the
Oh,
training
yeah,
dates,
sorry.
ages and ages ago.
I
Yeah,
don't
'cause
know
you
that.
did something, didn't you? You
Yeah, me and Melina went on one.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and it's because obviously, like we said with this flooding, we might need to close the road, will we be able to do that? So,
Also, do you get any benefit from that training in your own
I don't know.
personal, with
I
David?
do, because I can work on the highway. Which
Yeah, I
is
don't need to
quite
work
a
on the
lot
highway, so
sometimes,
only when I'm doing parish council stuff.
but at least you're
That's
covered then.
voluntary. Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, we said it's like if we're doing anything like we do tend to do with trees and bushes and whatever.
And it does mean if in effect David and Amanda will be in charge if we're doing working parts as well, so you can authorise people to work with you, but
Yeah.
you're the ones who have got to
Yeah.
make sure we're doing what we should be.
Chief Flood.
Absolutely.
So we need a resolution to approve the statutory payments and also one to approve the variable payments. So we need two actually.
Amy,
Okay.
so all those in favour then of the statutory ones proposed by Amy?
Is that the majority?
I think that was,
Was that not?
yeah, I think John's voting yes.
You're
Okay.
voting yes. Okay, so that's unanimous. The variable payments
I'm going to abstain on that because of the parish hall
is
payment.
parish hall, so it'll be a vote.
All in favour of the payment of the
Yeah.
variable ones?
Okay.
Okay, and that's everyone apart from
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Then we move to the precept owner. That's
Yeah,
all for you.
obviously last time around we looked at the budget It is a precursor to the precept setting. And so what is our task now is to agree on the precept. What it thinks about it from that. Right, okay. Yeah, we agreed last time that, if you remember right, that rather sort of colourful spreadsheet that I sent out. And we agreed that a proposal of 53,956 was the right level, considering what our budget was to date and what we were forecasting to the end of the year. Now, the figures haven't changed since last month, apart from the fact that we have these other pressures coming on, which may require us to consider how much we hold. Now, at the moment, in the special projects, we don't have anything in there at all. There's nothing in there. There's a big fat zero in there at the moment.
Well, we've got to put something
So,
in.
what I wanted to show you is where we are at the moment in terms of our precept calculator. If we left it as it is, we were looking at a precept increase of 5%, which gives us a precept of 52,941. Now, if we go back to the budget and we put in, say for example, 5,000 in there, we put in 5,000 special projects, that changes the precept calculator and gives us a 14% increase. So up to 57,941 or 58 to round the figures off.
What difference would that make to, for instance, a
Well,
band?
Unfortunately, we haven't received the tax bands yet. We haven't received the actual tax, but I imagine it would be minimal. I mean, on £5,000, if we were adding £5,000, it's going to be pence probably almost.
120 houses. What was the number of houses in the village?
Well, for the, in terms of the BKN, we do a print run of 590. Some of those are posted out, so you're probably looking at 550, 560 houses.
So on an average, if you just do number of houses, you're talking £10 a year?
At the very most. When you consider when we were looking at the shop loan, we were looking at about £1.39 there, and we were borrowing quite a considerable amount of extra money. So I would have thought, you know, it would be hardly noticeable, hardly at all, by putting £5,000 on it for the contingent and for the purpose for which you're putting it. What you remember is the reason why you're doing it. You're putting it there to cover you for potential flood costs and other things. It's not just putting it on because we like to have £5,000 in the budget. It's actually done for a purpose. And so 5,000 is what I put in there. I could change the figure and I could put more than that, I could put less than that. Whichever you feel most appropriate.
So if we go with this level, which is 4 grand, 5 grand extra spend on what we think this year is going to be, if we look at that, how much does that leave in our reserves? Well, net reserves, that's reserves that are not set aside for anything.
The target reserves are based on 4 months of expenditure, okay, so that's the 14,122.
Yeah.
My calculations show that we'll end up with 15,137.
And
So
how
we're
much
actually above the target reserves.
and how much have we got sitting in the bank that's not included in this at the
Well,
moment?
you've got to bear in mind you've got the fixed reserves in there, 61,000, and they're committed reserves, which, okay, I suppose could be borrowed, if you want a better word. but
They're the ones
fixed
we
reserves.
refer to as an emergency if we get
The reserves, I'll show you what the reserves is made up of. Clerk's gratuity fund, that's effectively the pension. Okay. The BK election fund, that's money we put aside each year for potential elections that could take place. But we never know if somebody called an election or whatever, or we had to have an election. Sill grant funding of 36,778. The play reserve 5,000. That's 2 years. We've been putting aside 2,500 now for 2 years. 5,000. And then we had £1,000 from the Tony Hill reserve, which is sitting in the reserves. We've also put in there the PWLB, which is Public Works Loans Board, which was the figure that we were intending to use for the loan payments this year had we built the shop, but we didn't build the shop. So we put that into fixed reserves because that could cover us for any additional costs that might come out once we start the building project. So that's there as a sort of fixture, if you like, to help that fund. So that's the fixed reserves. So that just gives you an idea of how. So our fixed reserves are quite high. They're higher than they've been for a few years. That's largely to do with the fact that we're holding good Sill fund, and we're also, holding the PWLB fund as well. So that's a little bit higher than we would normally have. Because come next year, depending on how things turn out, the Sill fund will probably be used for the shop. So our fixed reserves next year will go like that.
Colin.
Can you remind me what the Sill, how much we got in the Sill fund?
36,000.
36,000.
With potential for more into next year, with 1 or 2 building projects that are being proposed and planned or completed. So there may be a little extra coming from that sort of project. And also bear in mind, next year we won't be paying the PWLB fund from day one of the start of the financial year. We should probably do a staged payment thing. Once we get into a building, we'll probably be paying so much to start the project, but we'll only be borrowing down limited amounts. So next year, although we've got 12,000 in there, we won't probably need the whole of the 12,000 next year.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is in the reserves that we've got now, fixing our variable reserves, we're sitting on circa £60,000.
Yeah.
So when we talk about putting £5,000 into special projects, that takes us down to 55 without affecting the preset.
The special projects will be part of our general reserve actually, because that'll be sitting in the general reserve, ready for items that need to be paid during the year.
Or could be
Unexpected.
unexpected payments.
We may not.
As opposed to our fixed. So we've got the £1,000 in there from Tony, which we can utilise anywhere we need to, can't we?
There is restrictions.
No, that was strictly given for the green.
Okay.
Equipment.
So that sits in the play equipment. So that gives us 3,500 in the play equipment at the moment.
No,
We've got 5 in there.
6,000 in
Plus
total.
here
We've
we
got
go.
5,000 in reserves
Look at the
and
same.
1,000 from Tony.
And
So-
then
so
if
if
the
we
budget
go-
goes ahead as proposed, then there'll be another 2.5, which will take it up to 7.5 plus 1.
7,500.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Next.
on the sill, it said 36,000. So I think really where I'm coming from is you're looking at this and we're sitting on circa 60,000. We've got stuff coming down the road that we don't know about. We can't plan for that. We're talking about a small, if you go into the public community and say 14-20% increase in a bill in the current climate, whether it's £5 per household, £20 per household, people are going to start raising their eyebrows. We are in a high inflation period. Inflation at the moment is, if you listen to the Conservatives, they're going to tell us it's going to be down 4-2% in 25. Most pundits are saying it's going to sit around 6 for the next 2 years. We're going out there at over twice inflation. That's quite a hard discussion unless we put a lot of, actually it's not going to cost you much per house.
But it's up to the council to explain to the residents why it's gone in that direction. Really.
But the explanation at the moment is because the main council has fouled up on their budgets. So you're going to have to pay more. That's quite a hard story to
Yeah,
deliver.
but if you look at our, could we go to our budget?
Yes, yeah.
If you look at our budget, Andy, many or the bulk of our expenditure are fixed costs which we can't change.
Mm-hmm.
The only wriggle room we have to do anything for the village is on these village costs here.
But you can change.
Those are our those are our variables. The rest is, so we've got, I don't know, how much does that column add up to? 34,000?
34,000, well that's the
Okay.
proposal.
So,
I'm forecasting this year that it'll end up at 40,000.
and we spend, we get through all these things during a year, and I wouldn't like to have nothing in there.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we've got an anticipated loan payment there on PWLP. That's not going to start from Jan 1. So that's going to come down. We've got a play reserve fund, which we
Don't forget, this doesn't run from January, this budget runs from
April.
May.
Yeah,
So-
from month 1. We've got a play reserve, so in there, are we going to start building in April? First of all, are we going to draw down on the fund? If not, we've got £1,000 a month that we're not going to be using for every month we're not drawing down on the fund. Play reserve, we've accepted that goes through. What we're trying to do is work out how much reserve we've got against our 60,000, because the budget is, you're saying it's the budget, but you're also saying there's numbers in there we're not going to spend.
No, and remember, this is a difficult year in some respects, because not only have we got the problems of not knowing what's coming from the county, we've also got some potential flood costs. We're not sure the fine detail of the shop costs at the end of the day, all the various component parts. There's a lot of uncertainties there.
There is, which is why you've got to have a decent.
Which is why you need to have a bit of a
Reserve.
buffer, you know,
Yeah.
otherwise you can get yourself into trouble. And the other thing, of course, Andy, which I think is worth pointing out as well, is the toilet block will be demolished, possibly before we start paying PWLP funds. Potentially, we could end up not using the costs of the toilet block for the, say, 3 months. We could do.
Yeah, the maintenance, which is one of the areas.
On the other hand,
Hold on for a
hire.
minute, I've got Melina and then Tracy and then Colin.
With all of these unknowns at the moment, but things that will be known by the end of January, say, when is our deadline to set this?
January. Remember, we have to set it ideally now, but the very, very latest, the January meeting. That's the very, very latest that we could do it. And
Because by then we'd know about the shop.
That won't make any difference, to be honest, Melina.
No, I don't know.
Because, it won't make,
It could do.
in
Could
my
make enough
thoughts, it
house
won't
and
make any
house
difference.
difference, couldn't it?
You've got to remember that between now and January the 3rd meeting, we've got, what, 4 weeks effectively, of which 2 weeks is probably, out of action virtually. So I can't honestly see that January the 3rd would give us any different information to what we have now, if I'm honest. It may do, but it may
Yeah,
not.
it could do, because obviously
But I
we've
can't
just
see
penciled in a meeting for December the 20th to look at the tenders.
Yeah. And if you felt that you wanted to leave it until December the 20th, then that would be fine. I mean, there's no reason not to. We don't have to have it necessarily in December, but most parish councils are going for their precept in December because I think they want to get a good handle on where we start the year. That's why most are doing it a little bit earlier this year, because it just helps parish councils to know where they stand.
But what I'm,
Just hold on, Andy,
sorry.
Tracy and then Colin.
Just a comment about if you're knocking the toilet block down, you're going to have some costs. Surely you'll be required to provide some toilet
Yeah.
facilities.
Yes, you will.
So
And that
we've
might
got
eat up that.
some costs
That
there.
might eat up that, Tracy. You're probably quite right there.
Colin and then Andy.
Well, I personally feel as that we should carry something in special projects. If you don't want to carry 5,000, put 2,000 in, so that at least we can dip into there for an emergency. But that's just my feeling. Every year we have something that comes up that we need the money.
Well, let's just put two. Let's put two of those so you can see what the difference is actually. Because I mean, let's just put it in there now. Just see what happens when we put that in. We were at 14% just now. We go down to 9%, but we're talking about very small amounts of money. Okay, it looks like a big percentage from 14 to 9, but the actual amount of money involved is tiny.
And I think, as Andy said, I mean, it's not the easiest sell to say we're doing this because somebody else has messed up their budgets. But the argument that surely we're making is that we're doing this to make sure that the service, that you at least continue to get the services that you were getting, because otherwise those services ain't going to be done in the same way. So it's...
There's no argument about, from my perspective, on the basis of the budget. I'm putting in 5,000, whatever it's going to cost us to clean the gullies, we have to do, or we're going to be in difficulties the next rainstorm. My concern is we're building a big reserve, and we're still building the reserve at a time like the example you gave us, Bob, where the previous council would flatten using its reserves, flatten the pricing and the structure out to the local community. We're in that position as this council. We're fairly liquid in asset. We've got 4 months, and based on the 4 months expenditure, that's our decision, not a statutory decision, as I remember. So we can drop that to 3 months and still be well covered and utilise whatever funds we've got in there at any point. So by not putting 5,000 into the special projects fund or putting 10,000 in, we can do it from our reserves by purely changing the, and I'm not saying let's not put a precept increase in, but we are in a lucrative position at the moment whereby just changing that formula up there from 4 to 3 months, we take 3,000 out of there, and there's almost your budget for your
I mean,
your
ultimately that's the decision that Mills will have to make. I mean, my slight concern would be we're heading into such uncharted waters next year with what's possibly coming down at us and the projects that we're already involved with. I think we need, in my view, we need some flexibility in there to know that we're covered, because once we've set the preset, we can't go anywhere else to top it up. So if we do run short, that's it. We can't meet our needs.
No other source of income.
And the difference would be if we don't spend and we find things are less expensive than we think they're going to be, then obviously next year, then we would be in a position of reducing the preset to allow that to happen. But
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to hear from others because
You've got to say
you
it
know,
again.
you've got to agree it, and you've got to see the logic that Andy said. Well, we'll take it out of our fixed reserves if we need it, or alternatively, because we've got, if you like, we can't take the lid off the box, if you like, to see what is going to come through next year. Should we therefore have something in our back pocket in case we have these things? And as Bob said, the increase is minimal, but I can see both reasons, and I think we need some feedback from you to see how.
because almost at the moment we're in that sort of Dalton Rumsfeld thing of there's known unknowns and there's a lot of unknown unknowns. AD.
Like you say, we don't know what's going to happen next year, so the council might turn around and say, oh, we're going to do gully pots once a year. Well, if we say that toward a parish, the parish council, the parish, they're going to try and say, well, that's not good enough. But if we say, right, we've got this, we're going to do it twice a year as well, that's going to be, oh, okay. Why is our money gone up each year? Well, it's because it's paying for this, paying for the flood protection, gullies to be emptied, culverts and that what to be done. So we've got it there. If it's going to happen again, we know it is. We know it's going to happen again because the council are not going to do it. So next year, if we did do this and raise it by, 14 or 2, whichever, they're surely going to understand. Because for what I understand, is I'm nearly flooded myself. So I'm going to understand if it's £10 a year. I don't care. Pardon?
I said that's probably why you understand then.
Yeah, but everyone else is going to understand around it.
Well,
Because if we leave it,
Amanda.
did you actually have a figure? How much is the council tax going to change by? So when people come and jump down our throats to say about it? Roughly.
I'll be able to tell you that, certainly by the time we get to the 20th.
Yeah.
I should be able to tell you what that figure is, because what we need to work that out is we need a tax base. from Somerset Council to tell us how, that will tell us how to work out the bandy, left and so on.
Because I think that's, if you're going to say like, yes, it's like £10 a year or whatever, no one's going to notice that. I mean, people are going to say when their bill comes through, oh yeah, you've had a rise, but it's so negligible that they're not going to notice it in terms of saying the benefits, like you said.
Won't be as much.
It's just, yeah.
So I mean, our members leaning then towards this. We resolve this on the 20th when we do the tenders as well.
And I'll try and get you the information that you need for the.
If we've got, if we had kind of more concise how it it is fundamentally going to affect that household or that household, so we know exactly what we're dealing with.
That's really reasonable. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's about a switch a year.
The one thing I would say is when I joined the council 16, 17 years ago, I always remember my predecessor saying to me, just be careful next month when you pay the bills because we won't have enough money to write all the checks. Now, I would never want to be in that position with this council again, because to me that was a very, very dicey sort of situation. And since then, we've been encouraged as parish councils to have better reserves. That's been a bit of an encouragement. We're only going for 4 months, which is well below where a lot of councils are. Normally they're about 6 months, actually, to be fair. Some are even up to 9 months. So we are at the lower end of the reserve spectrum. But I take your point, Andrew. How much money do you want to be sloshing around? That's good.
Okay, if members then are generally happy, we put this on the agenda for the 20th for a definite resolution that night. Okay. Matters of consideration. So we've got AMPR update.
Nothing to say there really, apart from the fact we're waiting for it to be delivered. Westcotec have got the order, they've confirmed the order. They've told me that they're going to let me know when they can deliver it to Sir Colin at some point. I suspect we'll get it before Christmas.
Hey.
The sign down Brent Street's been hit, and he tried to put it up there today. I think he was on the phone when I went past him, because he went, it is to me, but it's been hit, so he can't put it on because the sid's going to be.
Oh, you mean the post?
Yeah, the post itself
yes.
has been hit, so that's why it's not been put up there.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuart asked me for the extra brackets that I've got. I said I'd leave them out for him. They've been there now almost 3 weeks, and he said he'd call and collect them, but he hasn't.
He was here, so I could have asked him.
They're still there.
Right.
I'll make a note.
And can you advise him that one of the SIDs, and I think it's the one that's currently on Brent Street, the battery fails very quickly. And again, I asked him 12 months ago what make of batteries, so I reckon we could buy them cheaper through Radio Spares or someone like that.
Okay.
So,
because we raised batteries with them yesterday, didn't we? At the
We did.
surgery.
yeah, it goes very quickly, that particular one.
Okay. Nothing else on that one. Okay, so we've got community shop and build. Well, if we take the bits below that to start with, we've got the apple tree obviously has been removed, as members have seen, and we did the bill earlier. In terms of the ash dieback quotes, we are still chasing National Grid for them to give us a quote. And as Owen mentioned, it was raised by the landowners, just that we make it clear that whoever gets the contract has got to not completely rip up their garden while they're doing the work. Do you want to do the tendering process matters update and timetable?
The tendering timetable and process hasn't changed. We set a date of the 11th of December for the cut-off. I've had indications now from 3 or 4 people that they will meet the deadline of the 11th of December. In fact, we have had one already in. We're making progress, and I'm expecting at least 2 more coming by the end of the week, and possibly 3. So we should end up with, hopefully, with four tenders for consideration. And the working group will meet, the buildings working group will meet after the 11th to consider the tenders. And I can tell you, the way it will work is that because some of the tenders are coming down by email, what I will simply do is they will be sealed in an envelope and they will be redacted. So when the working group have a look at these tenders, they will not know from which builder or which contractor the tender has come from. So they'll be looking entirely at the basis of the tender and the detail of the tender, not who has submitted it. Okay? So the only person at that stage that will know who submitted it will be myself. And since I'm not participating at all in the tendering discussion, then that's how it should be. That's the best way to do it, to keep it completely impartial. And then the buildings working group will look at the four or three or however many tenders we get. They will have a look at it with Paul Martin, our architect, because he may have some things to point out on the tenders that we're perhaps not aware of. Maybe some things that he suggests we look at, because he won't know either who they are. And so at that point we can then consider any implications or any questions that need to be asked, and then bring it to the council on the 20th of December to open it up. But again, it'll be a public meeting and there still won't be contractors' names on the tender. It'll still, what you'll be looking at is 3 or 4 tenders with detailed information, nothing else. So you can't be influenced at all by the fact that, one is down the road and another one's, 3 miles down the road. So that's the way to do it impartially. And then at that point, we should hopefully make a decision based on the information we've got. Are you all happy with that as a process? Okay.
Then we've got the legal drumping and Holly and Steer.
They are making some noises. Basically, Charles Fleming has had some difficulty trying to tie down who's actually dealing with it. Not Clark. We now think we've sussed out the person concerned, and Charles has promised me that he will get some very, very detailed information for us within a week or so. So by the time we get to the 20th of December, hopefully we should have some firm information to give you.
Okay. Any comments, questions on that section?
Just on the tender process, retracted all sounds great. Because I've not been here for a while, part of the research on the tenders before it gets to voting, we'll do a financial search on the companies in the background.
All that must be done.
Yeah.
Which is possibly why we might not be able to make a firm decision until we get into the new year, possibly, because there will be some checks yet to do. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Andy. Those checks need to be done, of course.
Okay. Meeting dates for 2024 and green
I've
inspection.
got all that now. I sent all the information to you, so you've got meeting dates, you've got rota, you've also got the surgery list. And on the surgery list, I left some gaps, because obviously there are some people, it's easier for them to attend the surgery than others, quite naturally. They're working, it's very, very difficult. So I've left some gaps there, so if anybody can make the odd one through the year, it's always good for members to be seen, I suppose, at surgeries, if possible. So hopefully that's all fairly clear.
We have the policy documents, safeguarding and grant awards that were circulated.
We've got a number of policies which, we run about 20 different policies, and they need updating from time to time. And the reason why I've chosen these 2 particular ones is that they're the 2 oldest, they're yet to be readopted. There is no change to either of them, they're exactly the same as they were before. Safeguarding has become a big issue now for a lot of organisations, so I thought I'd choose a safeguarding one, just to re-adopt, give you a chance to read it. If there's anything you want to comment on it that you don't like about it, then that's fine. And the same with the small grants one, that hasn't been updated for about 2.5 years. So again, I just need you to So you've read it, you approve the continuation of those 2 policy documents, and we'll move on to 2 more next month, we may.
So is everyone happy that they've seen the documents? Any amendments that anyone wanted to propose, or are you happy that we adopt those going forward as those 2 documents?
I would just say something on the safeguarding one. I am now DBS checked, which is quite useful because it's always good for somebody on the council to be DBS checked. And the fact that I've now got a DBS certificate on a basic level, that means that there's somebody there.
No, it's, I'm also DBS checked through charities.
Let's make 3, because
Three.
as a councillor I have to be
So look at this, all this information comes out. Thank you.
Okay, so can I propose then that we adopt those 2 documents, please? Thank you. All those in favour, please show.
Right.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Flowers.
Flower boxes, so I think we have. And so, as I say, there was a volunteer who came forward at the surgery who said he was prepared to help out. Again, things like watering, he's happy to help with as well, wasn't he? So,
What I want to know is he going to look after Burton Row or not? Because I can carry on doing it myself, you know, Ann Road and Burton Row. I'll do both of them, so, you know.
I think Amy, it sits with you because if he has said he will take it on if we would like him to, but if you're wanting to carry on doing it, then equally he's not going to.
He's not championing the
I tried it today and I parked my van, and the van's bigger than the car,
Yeah.
and they can see it more clearly.
Yeah.
And I parked that up there, and you know I was nearly off the road in other words,
Okay.
right on the actual thing. So I don't mind doing it. I've replanted it up today, so
Excellent. All right, no worries.
yeah, I
We'll
don't mind doing it.
let him know that.
But if you struggle with it or you want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
change
yeah,
it,
yeah,
we'll do
fine.
that.
Excellent. Yeah, Amanda.
The Ham Road one, is it coming apart?
Yeah, I've got to fix it when I get back from France next week.
Oh, okay.
I've got to take it all apart and rebuild it up and put some more
Yeah.
soil in it. I was just a bit of David about it later, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yes. Dave, we're looking into
I
Struman.
haven't done anything more, unfortunately.
Okay.
I will do.
And does that apply to the first aid training?
The first day training, I haven't done anything, but Aid's going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Our DLA is a
hold on. BLA.
duty launch authority.
Right.
RNLI is it a level 1 whatever paramedic, doctor, surgeon person goes out to accidents and blah blah blah. I don't know, there's all these technical things, right? He said he would do it for 120 a day, 120 per person. That's for the whole day, and that's including the actual fib course as well. So that's £120 per person.
The person who attends.
Hmm?
So 120 for each person who
Each
attends.
person.
I don't think we could do it on that basis.
That's including the fib.
I understand, but if we had 10 people turn up, that's like.
Yeah. But that's not with a fib machine, is it? Because if you're using a fib machine, then it's got to be one of his machines sort of thing, or one of the instructor's machines. You can't use one down the street in the flat. Do you know what I mean?
No,
Right.
no, I didn't understand any of what
Right.
you just
A
said.
fib machine, yeah.
No,
yeah.
go back to the
Right.
beginning.
What?
I didn't
Right.
understand any of it.
What he said, it's £120 per person, including the basic first aid course, including working how to use a fib machine.
Defibrillator.
Defibrillator, yeah, fib
Right.
machine, okay? That's £120. If you just want basic first aid, it's only going to be like 50 quid per person, something like that.
Still over.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But that's what he said, that's a, you know, that's his prices. Obviously, you know,
Okay.
St John's Ambulance, they do it. Yes, they do.
yeah, this is more
Yeah.
intense than a first aid. Yeah.
But the St John's Ambulance, there used to be a brigade of them in East Brent. I don't know if there still is. But they used to go around doing that kind of stuff.
And they do it really cheaply.
But
Yeah.
some of them aren't allowed to do the defibrillator.
And I know the guides had someone come out and do defib training in the hall a little while ago. So
Yeah.
There is another one
Yeah.
put. Sorry.
That's all right, Melina. We go Malcolm and then Melina.
We've done first aid courses before.
Yes.
Can we look up previous records and see if we can find anything out?
Possibly. I'm not sure I'll be able to furnish you with very much information, but I'll have a look.
We can try. Melina?
There is another defibrillator training booked in with James Sinnott coming up, I think, isn't there? I saw advertised somewhere.
Yeah, I've seen